We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's August 29th here in Seoul. I'm Yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning.
Good morning, and Kim Si-young.
Good morning, Ian.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. France is soon to throw out around 100 swimming pools worth of wine. That's because the country has seen a drop in demand for wine, which has led to overproduction. To help French winemakers overcome financial difficulties, officials on Friday said they would allocate $216 million to destroy the surplus wine. That's around 66 million gallons worth of wine. Moving on, despite concerns that customers would no longer want to eat seafood, a fish market in Seoul saw its profits double on the first weekend following Fukushima's treated wastewater discharge. Officials said it's too soon to be relieved, though, because a big portion of customers most likely visited the fish market thinking that the seafood out on stock wouldn't be affected by the release of wastewater. And we may be able to enjoy a 6-day holiday in the first week of October. The country's ruling People Power Party requested the presidential office to designate October 2nd, which falls on a Monday, as a temporary holiday. The days leading up to this date are when the country celebrates its annual Thanksgiving holiday, also known as Chuseok. The day after, October 3rd, is National Foundation Day, so if October 2nd were to be changed into a temporary holiday, we would be able to enjoy a full 6 days off. And a final decision will most likely be made by September 5th. And back in 2017, the president at the time, Moon Jae-in, did designate October 2nd as a temporary holiday, and at the time, people could enjoy 10 straight days off. Now, I'd like to expand the newsfeed to the studio. Si-young, are you looking forward to seeing October 2nd be included as a temporary holiday?
You know what? I mean, I would have in any other year, but this year I do have a business, it's a study trip that I'm actually organizing for a foreign delegation Korea inbound program. And I was already concerned because we had the 3rd of October, which is a Korea National Foundation Day. But now that the 2nd is going to be also a holiday, it's a big problem. That's going to hinder all my plans. I love holidays usually, but for this year, it might cause more problems.
It could be a bit of a hassle for you.
It is, yeah, it would be.
What about you, Ji-hee?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Why?
Wait till holiday. I mean, I feel sorry for Si-young for the whole trip that you have to organize. But I would love to see this 2nd of October turn into a holiday. And I mean, I'm a freelancer, so it might not really apply to me like every day because I don't have a 9 to 6 working hour. But speaking for all the office workers out there, I would say yes. And for myself too, I would definitely say yes. And I'm already thinking of where to go.
Really?
Any long holiday plans?
I might want to go to Taiwan if this turns into a holiday.
Yeah.
But let's just hope that this, sorry, Si-young, but...
What about you? You excited?
Yeah.
I am very excited. I'm going to speak on behalf of all the office workers out there who have to be working 9 to 6. I mean, even if it's not a national holiday, I think a lot of people are going to be using their paid days off to actually use this day as a holiday.
Of course.
But we'll have to see what happens. All right, and that was our news feed for this Tuesday. And we're coming back from a very hot summer. As we've seen record heat waves hit the country, temperatures have definitely pushed some people to the extremes, such as wearing bikinis on the street, not even close to a pool or beach. And we're going to be taking a look at the recent bikini controversy here in Korea. This summer, we've been seeing incidents of women in bikinis roaming around central Seoul. Earlier this month, a woman was spotted riding an electric scooter in just a bikini. On the very same day, police received a report about 4 women in bikinis and helmets riding motorcycles in Seoul's Gangnam-gu district. These incidents have spurred heated debates online. While some said it's an individual's right to wear whatever they want, others said it was an obscene way of asking for attention. Police even considered whether to charge these women with indecent exposure, where people can be fined up to $75 for social misconduct at public places. wearing bikinis in the middle of Seoul. We're talking about regular streets and roads where pedestrians, children, and office workers walk by, and the incidents that spurred online debates all took place in the center of the city where no pool or beach was found. And I'm sure you guys heard about the recent bikini controversy in Korea. So what was your initial reaction to that?
Well, at first, my response was, what's the big deal, really?
Right. Yeah.
Because I believe that the urge to express oneself, and we've talked about this a lot before, the younger generation, they have that urge to express themselves. However, if it was a formal event, like as in a conference or a business meeting, I'd say wearing bikinis, of course, would have been quite inappropriate because it's not considering the TPO, the dress code.
Wear,
Exactly. But then on the streets, I think it really is your own choice and your own freedom. It's your right, really, to express yourself. And this incident, the woman turned out to be an influencer. And I thought it was really interesting how she thought about this whole controversy, because she apologized to some people who felt quite uncomfortable seeing her express herself in her bikinis. But at the same time, she said she felt this sense of liberation. And in addition to this incident, actually these days, there's quite a lot of criticism at women, like increasing the number of women wearing bikinis in valleys, like streams, as well as in swimming pools in apartment complexes and community centers.
Do you think it's getting worse? Do you think people are more inclined to criticize people these days wearing bikinis?
I think so. I think it's because they see more people wearing them.
But you mentioned a good point. I think now the controversy is where is the most appropriate time, place, and occasion to be wearing bikinis. Now, what did you think once you heard this recent bikini controversy?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, bikinis, you keep mentioning that they're nowhere close to pools or the beach or whatever. And I mean, obviously, bikinis are swimwear initially. So it does make sense that you should be wearing it to go swimming. But obviously, I think the opinions divide into two groups as well. The first would be that it's culturally and then morally even wrong to publicly expose skin, versus as long as no one's performing sexual activities or too much of an indecent exposure, that it should be allowed without any criticism, and showing skin should be personal freedom. But I mean, it seems that across all generations, cases of excessive exposure make an issue now and then. For example, last year in Busan, there was a man in his 40s who was actually arrested and charged, was fined for wearing thongs and hot pants, so exposing his buttocks in public, as well as a few other cases in Suwon, which didn't actually have any penalties. So it depends on the case by case which gets penalized and which doesn't. And it seems like right now, we should be able to feel liberated. We should be able to wear whatever we want, whenever we want, as long as you don't actually directly harm anybody. I mean, culturally, of course, things like the bikini girl on the motorcycle can impose a certain sort of level of cultural differences. People might be shocked on the streets. But as you mentioned before in the rehearsals, you were saying that the guy who was also topless didn't get as much criticism. He was actually even praised by everyone saying, oh, he's got a great body, he's in shape.
They lauded their body.
Which is very controversial, which doesn't actually make sense. It should be very equal stance, if anything.
So there's definitely a gender perspective that we will take a look on. But before we do that, I think that we are seeing split opinions as to whether it was appropriate or not for this woman to be wearing a bikini in the middle of Seoul. But why don't we figure out to what extent we think it's okay to wear a bikini? So I have a few questions to ask you guys based on the TPO. What's the most appropriate TPO to wear a bikini? And the first question is, so could you hold up your OX panels? Okay. So do you guys think it's okay to wear a bikini at swimming pools or that are inside apartment complexes or community centers? And mind you, that these community centers, swimming pools are like family oriented. You'd see little toddlers on the street, okay? So let's see if you guys have an answer.
Who's gonna go first?
With an OX. T, you wanna go first?
I'd say no.
No, okay, no bikinis at these
No,
events.
I wouldn't wear bikinis in
Why
these
not?
places because they're family oriented. There are children, and they're pretty closed spaces. You know,
Right.
if it's on a beach, I would feel more free to wear bikinis, and people won't be staring at you as much. I feel like you know because these places, like I said, are very closed, and you have different age groups of
Yeah.
people in the apartment complexes as well as the community centers. And usually in community centers, you learn how to swim.
Yeah,
There are
that's
lessons
true.
going on.
You vigorously swim
Exactly.
too.
So I think it's not very appropriate because it doesn't feel very comfortable to be wearing them. This is a personal
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 opinion.
anecdote. Yeah, what about you, Xiao?
I think
You're okay,
yeah,
why?
I think you should be able to wear whatever you want, especially in an apartment complex. You probably be in the pool because you live there.
Yeah.
And you might just come for literally just a chill, you want to lay on the one of those sun beds or whatever and just chill out for a minute, read a book. And you don't really want to do excessive swimming, so it might come in. So if it's not so, I mean, also it depends on the bikinis, I guess. If you're
Why?
in sort of a Borat-style mankini string bikini, of course it's gonna be a hot
But that's
issue.
a good point.
Yeah, but if you're wearing just a average bikini that's not too overly exposing, as most people wear,
Yeah.
I think it has no problem.
It'd be okay.
Especially if nowadays people go to vacations, what we call hotel vacations and things like that. People just literally go stay in a hotel instead of going to a
Right.
location. They use the pool beach just to hang around with their families or with their loved ones, taking pictures,
Yeah.
having a picnic basically, and they want to look pretty. So it's very normal for hotel pools to wear bikinis, and now all of a sudden apartment complexes are like,
Yeah.
oh, no bikinis on. I don't
Because the
think
main
that makes sense.
the main argument behind
Yeah.
that is that there's so many kids there and toddlers
Yeah.
that are there to learn swimming lessons. But as you mentioned,
But what do you think kids will think? Kids will be like, oh wow, there's a
No,
woman in a bikini.
right, that's true. This is a controversial
Yeah,
because
I don't understand.
Hotels,
the
I'd
kids
say
thing.
yes.
yeah, hotels I'd say
Yeah.
yes.
Well, what's
too.
the difference between an apartment
I know,
complex?
Because
and a
like
hotel?
I don't want
that's
my
also true.
residents, my neighbors, like
Maybe it's because you might have a personal connection
Right.
with
exactly.
these people in
I don't
these
know. I'd
apartment
feel
and
very
you feel
uncomfortable.
embarrassed
Yes.
a little bit.
All right, and very briefly,
Right.
guys, what about in valleys or streams?
Valleys.
Yeah, like little streamways, kegguk in Korean.
Okay.
Would you
Right.
be wearing? Oh, you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
You're
mean,
an advocate of bikinis, by the way.
well, I'm an advocate of people wearing whatever they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't mind. I mean, because also, I think the problem lays when someone sexualizes the object, the person who's wearing something. It shouldn't be like that. If nobody cares whether you're naked or you're wearing a bikini or you're in a burqa, then it should be perfectly fine. No,
Right.
there's no problem in both ways. But just because you're wearing a bikini somewhere you kind of think it's inappropriate, just to criticize them on the grounds that they're
Right.
doing that, on the grounds of what they're wearing, it doesn't actually make sense, especially valleys or beaches. People should be free whatever they want to wear.
Right, now to play the devil's advocate yet
Right.
again, the difference between valleys and streams and beaches is that beaches are much wider. A lot
Right.
of people are
Open.
there. Yeah, they're
But
wearing their
valleys are very
swimwear,
private.
but
it's
they're
in the
very
woods.
private.
There might be nobody around
Yeah, and not a lot of people do wear swimwear there. Right?
Exactly.
because
They
it's
just wear-
dangerous.
Because
Is it?
you're not supposed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
swim there.
Yeah, you're not
too
supposed to
much,
swim
too.
there. And
Yeah.
I've never swam
yeah.
in these valleys before. I would just be splashing water,
Yeah.
putting
Right,
my
exactly,
feet in the
yeah.
cold water. So I'd say no. Yes, but no.
Yes, but no. What's that?
So it's okay, of course. I'm
Yeah.
not the person who sets these standards, but I wouldn't be wearing them. Personal reasons again, because I would feel very uncomfortable
Right.
Right.
wearing them, and I don't usually swim in these valleys. And it's more natural to just be wearing like a t-shirt or
Yeah.
a short
Yeah,
pants.
exactly. Yeah.
So I think for you, Chihi, you really do consider TPO. As for Xiao, I think you prefer like personal preference, right? It really comes down to the person.
I think so. Yeah.
Now, my last question I have for you in this prior part of our discussion is, as you mentioned, Xiao, there's a gender perspective to this issue,
Definitely,
right? What do you think about that?
I mean, there is definitely a gender issue going on regarding the TPO, regarding formal wear or informal wear, even swimwear. A lot of people, it seems like, especially in Korea, that men are less of a victim of sexualization overall in
Yeah.
the world as well. Men are more fine with being topless, whereas, women actually have to protest to be topless and actually have to sign petitions. There have been movements, free the nipple, if I may say, things like that, to actually liberate females as well in what they want to wear and how they conduct their body as well. So I think it's a very, very sort of socially unacceptable phenomena where it's okay for men to be topless and go around, you know, with sleeveless tops, you know, showing their muscles. But as soon as women tend to wear, you know, something really tight, leggings or gym wear, everyone would be like, oh, that's too much for us.
Right.
You know, if it's too much for you, then just don't say anything and look somewhere else. You can't just be, close your eyes.
Keep your own boundaries.
There's no reason to criticize someone who's in public doing what they want.
Yeah, you're representing a big portion of what a lot of millennials are thinking out there in Korea. But as I mentioned before in our intro video, the woman that had been stirred up in the recent bikini controversy could potentially have faced a fine specifically for offending people by excessively exposing their body. And to find out more about this law, let's include a legal expert in our talks. Let's add a legal perspective to our issue today by talking to a lawyer. It's Kim Jisoo. Welcome, Jisoo.
Good morning, Jisoo.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
All right, Jisoo, so I'm curious, what happened to the women who wore bikinis on motorcycles in Central Seoul earlier this month? Were they penalized, and what types of penalties could they have faced?
Well, she was caught on the spot and currently going through a police investigation, and the investigation normally takes about up to 2 to 3 months. So the incident happened just a couple weeks ago, and the result had yet to come. However, the women involved in the incidents are highly subject to legal repercussions. So some of you can ask, can someone actually be punished for being undressed in public? And the answer is yes. So based on South Korea's Minor Offenses Act, anyone who excessively exposes their body in a manner that offends or embarrasses in public spaces could face charges, and if found guilty, the fine could be up to 100,000 Korean won, roughly $75. And there's also a provision under the criminal code regarding so-called obscene performance, which carries a much more severe penalty, so a penalty of up to 1 year in prison.
I see. So Jisoo, so you mentioned this law called Minor Offenses Act, which states that anybody who offends or embarrasses anybody else by, quote, excessively exposing their body in public spaces could be fined up to $75. But the wording used is very subjective and vague. Could you better define this law, and where and how can we not wear bikinis or expose too much skin?
Okay, certainly the Minor Offenses Act, as described, does seem to use subjective language. So it may be helpful to clarify the specific circumstances that constitute excessive exposure to provide more guidance to law enforcement, for the masses, and for the public. And with the following question, when and where can we wear bikinis or expose too much skin? Well, bikinis might be seen as appropriate at the beach or a pool, that in the debate you mentioned before, or any kind of venue where swimwears or similar attires is expected to be. But it could be considered excessive in central city areas like Hongdae or Gangnam, where such attire might be seen as out of the norm and could cause offense or embarrassment. So overall, this Minor Offenses Act does play an important role in maintaining public order and safety in South Korea. But as you mentioned, it is important to ensure that the language used in the law is clear and objective to avoid such kind of confusion and potential abuse of power.
Yeah, of course, Chusha. I mean, I think that's a great point also Jihee made. I did speak about a case in Busan last year where a man did get fined, but the same year, a man in Suwon who wore the same basically thongs in public didn't actually get any penalization. So I guess it really depends on the subjectiveness of the law. But I'd like to hear about the cases abroad for our global audiences. Are there any penalization process similar to Korea in other countries around the world?
Well, of course, as some of you might have already expected, Korea is definitely not the only one. Many countries have laws regarding public indecency, exposure, or obscenity. In the United States, it's illegal to expose one's genitals in public, and this can be classified as public indecency or indecent exposure. And the same goes by in the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Singapore, and so on. And their penalties often include fines or imprisonments. And although it is important to note that these kind of penalties may vary depending on the specific circumstances and the interpretation of the law. However, in general, displaying nude is mostly considered indecent and offensive. So when it comes to public nudity, less is not more, it's just illegal.
All right. Thank you
Thanks very
so
much,
much, Jisoo. It was such a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, and if we elaborate on the last issue that Jisoo brought up, we're going to be focusing on today's topic in more of a global perspective. Take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of our viewers had to say on today's discussion topic. So Fizzwater said, I like the concept of no shirt, no shoes, no service. Some stores have these signs up to enforce health and safety regulations in a, quote, nice way. Kite said, in Japan, women often wear bikinis to the beach. However, because a 2-piece bikini can be a bit rather revealing and thereby immodest, it is common to see people wearing their normal clothes too. Merlin said there are no set rules for bikini wearing, but the ritzy restaurants are probably not going to allow it among their wealthy customers. And at church, it's not a good idea to wear a bikini to watch the sermon. So yet again, I think another key word is where you are wearing these bikinis.
Yeah.
But I think the perception that people have here in Korea and abroad is different, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most European countries like France, Germany, Spain, do actually allow a lot of nudity. In Germany especially, there is a huge nudist community as well. So I mean, it really depends on the culture, I think. And just next to it, Islamic countries, of course, you can't show most of any of your skin. I mean, Jihi, if you want to elaborate on the
exactly.
bikinis and things
right,
like that.
Right.
Yes.
So for women, they're not allowed to expose any of their skin parts. So if they want to go swimming, they wear what they call bikinis, and they're basically swimsuits.
Bikini, is it?
Yes, bikinis. They look like diving suits, so they cover up most of their body parts. And like you mentioned, I think it's the acceptability of wearing bikinis and clothes that expose your skin depends on the different cultural and religious background of a
That's such
state.
a good point, yeah.
Yes, so Asian cultures, they tend to be more conservative
yeah.
with what they wear. But then the thing is, the important part here is wearing something that's appropriate for a specific occasion is the common rule and the norm of all cultures, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway today. I think we should be able to just wear, appropriate attires. And I think, to be honest, social oppression, in my opinion, leads to over-fantasization. So if people keep thinking, it's very inappropriate to wear bikinis or you got to cover up when you're in certain spaces, it's going to lead up to other people thinking, so if we see a bit of skin, that's very exciting. We should do something that we shouldn't be allowed to do. And we should get rid of that sort of, not oppression, but sort of social stigma regarding fashion sense as well.
And we've actually been already seeing that a lot of celebrities, like in water bomb festivals and water festivals, they're wearing like these swimwear as fashionable attire, which is why a lot of people are getting a bit more open to the idea, starting from our generation.
That's great.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this latest issue. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee
Always a pleasure.
and Kim Xiao.
My pleasure.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.